So my number two film is Babe from 1995. This is a film directed by Chris Noonan, starring James Cromwell and Christine Cavanaugh. The plot summary: Babe, a pig raised by sheepdogs on a rural English farm, learns to herd sheep with a little help from Farmer Hoggett. So we're still in the English countryside, I guess. Okay. So this film, and the reason why this does give me joy is animals just bring me joy, and the bond between human and animal. In my life it's been dogs because those have been my pets, but I do feel like a kinship with all of God's creatures, all the animals out there. And it does just bring me joy to see not only these movies and these stories that you're really inside of the world of the animals and it kind of sees things from their perspective, but just the bond that can develop between animals and humans and how special and unique that is. And over the course of this film, Babe, who's the titular pig, they start out basically thinking about him as food and they're going to eat him. And that is, he sort of is kind of aware of it. And the farmer does not show any love towards the pig and just like, okay, this is going to be my food. And then over the course of the film, there's a relationship that develops where they end up being partners and win this competition at the end of the film on sheepdog. And the pig is taking the place of the sheepdog, which actually is another thing in that also can bring me joy, is this feeling of you having a passion and an interest in something and being able to go out and accomplish that despite what the society is telling you your role has to be. And there's a scene earlier on in this film where there's a duck who, again, to escape being eaten, is basically playing the role of a rooster and waking up the farmers in the morning and sort of going outside of the confines of being, fitting what the role of a goose should be. And he ends up really enjoying it and actually likes the role. And Babe also is a pig, and he's not meant to be herding sheep. That's what the dogs are there for. But Babe enjoys it and is good at it and then gets rewarded at the end. And there's a lot of joy for me in people sort of finding out who they are and what their passions really are, and not just what, society is telling them to do. I mean, the dogs, especially there's one male sheepdog who sort of represents the authority and you got to stay in your lane type. He even gives a speech and says, like, to each creature, his own destiny, each creature has their own proper place. Like, you're a dog, you do this. You're a pig, you do this. You're a sheep, you do this. And I think there's a lot of joy in sort of finding your own lane and not just being in a lane that's given to you. So that's something also that I love about this film. Have you seen Babe the pig before? And what are your thoughts on this film?
I'd never seen it before.
Oh,
Obviously, know of
interesting.
it as this kind
Yeah.
of, surprising Oscar darling and interesting movie in George Miller's career, which is, so diverse in so many ways. But I'd never watched it because I sort of was like, oh, this is like a kid's movie, with pretend voices of animals and what have you. So I sort of never got to it. And I was wrong. And how
It's not really a
pleasantly
kids movie, really. I mean, it's super dark, but
it's super dark, but also like it's just very, very well done. I mean, there's a reason why this movie became so beloved. And I
mm-hmm.
watched it like now, it's an older movie, and I wasn't expecting it to hold up, but it holds up so beautifully. These themes have been done before. There have been so many movies with, quote unquote, more advanced CGI of
Mm-hmm.
animals being voiced by humans. There are a bajillion of those movies, but there's something very, I don't know, like very pure and kind of craftsman-y, sort of hand-drawn, even though it's not hand-drawn, but it feels
Mm-hmm.
very tactile and feels very personal and intimate. There's something, it doesn't have like jump cuts and, crazy reactions of things, falling from all over the place. Like
Right.
it movie has like a lot of breadth to it. It has like a very delicate hand to it, which is not what I was expecting from a movie like this. So I loved it. Of all the things you said in terms of joy, the other thing I would add to that, and I agree with what you said, but what I would add to that is this feeling of friendship, but unlikely friendships and kinships that you see in the
Yes.
movie, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
the female sheepdog who brings in Babe, because without her, Babe is probably gone in the
Right.
first 10 minutes, right? Because
Right.
she really adopts him and, shows him the ropes. And then later on, when Babe starts to discover his passion, that he's good at herding sheep, there are a few sheep. There's one like older sheep who kind of connects with Babe and
Mm-hmm.
develops this relationship. And I love how they find this language,
Yeah.
that herding doesn't have to mean yelling or being bossed around or being, led by fear. it can just be a conversation. It can
Yeah.
just be, oh, would you just walk over there? And but this happens because there's this older sheep who for the first time gets to express how they feel and what they are looking for in terms of direction. So it's a very organic kind of way of developing a new language of how Babe and the sheep communicate. And you see that just in front of your eyes. It's not expository, it's not spelled out. You just see it happen and unfold in front of you. And all of those moments are super joyous to watch. So yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, it's that partnership between animals, which
Yeah.
now there's all these TikToks that are like unlikely animal friends, and you watch like, oh look, a
Right,
bear is
right.
befriended like a donkey or whatever. It's maybe this movie is the inspiration for all these TikTok videos and etc. But you're right, it is a partnership that forms between the animals too, and that's something that when you think of a sheep and a pig, you don't necessarily think about them as you think about them as the sheep stay in their herds, the pigs are in the sty or whatever. And there is something fun and just makes me smile when it's like, oh, the animals are all kind of friends together. Like, oh, this is cute.
Yeah.
Like, I love this. It makes me happy. And I think with you were mentioning about the animals, this movie does a fantastic job of combining CGI in terms of the mouths, real animals, and then incredible animatronics. And I think that brings a sense of realism and to these performances instead of now all the animals would just be CGI, which sometimes can make it feel a little unnatural, and then they have to be big exaggerated movements and like more of a cartoon, and this felt like real animals. I mean, yeah, their mouths are moving, so that's not real, but real more there's a sense of reality to this that I think this movie does really well.
That's good to hear, because that's what I was trying to articulate, that it feels very tactile and human and personal. And I think that's why. We also haven't mentioned James Cromwell, who I think is so good in this movie. Oscar
He's
nominee.
excellent. Yeah.
Like, doesn't have much to say, but his physicality, his expression on his face, like all of it is just so clear. You understand his soul, right from the get-go. And you see that progression and the friendship and the kinship he forms with Babe, and just the whole farm that he runs. Like, it's just all there. Beautiful performance.
No, it really is. And especially like at the end when they're in they're doing the sheep competition thing, and then the pigs, does his good job. It's like, oh, that'll do, pig. And it just, you can see that in the sense of joy and sort of satisfaction in his face when he's talking to this pig. And then there's this great shot of the clouds sort of opening up and the sun sort of shines down on them, which I think the direction style of this is really interesting. It does feel a lot like you're looking at a picture book, which this was based on a book, which I did read as a kid too. But the way that they frame these shots feel like drawings in a picture book instead of a movie. And I sort of like that there's this otherworldliness to this, even the production design, like everything feels a little bit off, not in like in a bad way, but like it would be in just an illustration, like a little exaggerated, like you're reading a kid's book instead of either a super cartoony world or an incredibly like grounded in reality world. It's this really interesting balance, which this movie actually has too. It feels almost like a fable, in the sense of there's a lot of darkness to it. Like animals are getting killed. They're talking about slaughter. Characters do die in this film in very realistic and sad ways, but it still is a kid's movie. It's this very unique film. And I think the tone of this is what is so hard to pull off. Either you feel so cartoony or it's like so dark and kind of twisted. It doesn't work for kids, but this movie does a fantastic job of doing both. And in the same way, similar vein to a movie we covered in our last episode, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I feel like they're both, it feels like a Roald Dahl story almost too, even though this is not Roald Dahl. The Roald Dahl can do that, thread that needle.
Kind of a masterwork in terms of balancing the tone, like you said.
Yeah, definitely. Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.